He is Jermaine Mike, the head of standardization, and he is here to enlighten us on their current draft regulations. Good morning, Jermaine, and welcome back to Good Morning SKN.
Good morning, thank you for having me again.
You are certainly welcome. So for the novice, what are draft regulations?
Draft regulation is just a regulation that is in the phase of being edited or can be commented, can be changed. So the public can, at this point in time, because it's in a draft stage, the public can make queries, they can see it for themselves, they can make comments on it, they can say, we don't like this, or we like this, or can you put in this, right? This is the stage that it's at this point in time.
So once it's been completed, no one has a say?
Well, you can have a say, but you would have to go through a very lengthy process to get that changed.
Okay.
It can be changed.
Okay.
Yes, that amendment can be changed, but yeah.
All right.
Is there a timeline for the implementation of the regulations that are being drafted right now?
Our legal process, technically, our act speaks to 60 days for intent. So just by making the intent known that we are going to have a regulation in place, we are supposed to let the public know with 60 days that we intend to do this. We are also supposed to let the international arena know about the intent as well, around 60 to 90 days, especially if it affects trade. And the regulations that we are putting out will undoubtedly affect trade.
And so there is that window of opportunity for a dialogue to be had concerning the regulations from the international community as well.
Yes, yes, especially because, I mean, we're a heavy importer, so, and we do a lot of importing on a lot of goods, right? That's a lot of our goods come from the international arena. So it can affect, not it can, it will affect trade. So for example, we do get a lot of electronics. We don't make anything here, so all of our electronics come in. We don't make medication here, right? And so all of our medication is being imported, so it will undoubtedly affect trade, undoubtedly.
How though? I'm trying to understand.
Well, give you an example again. Last time I was here, I had made mention of the electronics part. If you go into some of the electronic hardware stores and so forth, you can see electronics that are there that are in a different language. Usually it is Spanish. Nowadays, we have no prejudice against the Spanish language or anything like that.
Understood.
But we must be able to understand how to repair it, how to work it and so forth. If something goes wrong and it's in Spanish, we don't know if this, we have to go and use internet tools to get that done when it should not be this way.
Okay.
In addition to that, when it comes to medication, I'm just going to go out on a limb and speak on it, right? I'm going to go out on a limb and speak on it. There was a recent incident where someone, they bought medication. It was not in English. They were overdosed, unfortunately, I think. And if that information was if that information was there in English for the person to know,
okay,
that could have been avoided. There are many other things that are the possibilities that can be there for implications, health implications, safety implications, environmental implications, right? Something may have been a radioactive material, and just because it's not labeled in English, you don't know. Many of the times that we pave roads, they have been radioactive materials and we don't know, right?
Okay.
But,
so health and also legal implications as well. So very important considerations. Let's talk specifically about the draft regulations, the packaged water labeling of goods and labeling of prepackaged foods. These are the three draft regulations. Okay, so what can we expect?
So with the goods, as I was speaking earlier, this is just the basic requirements that is necessary for, I guess, for the public. It's some basic things like package must be in English. You must it must say where it was manufactured. It must say where the which country it came from, right? Just how much is in it. You want to know if when I go there, if I'm spending $20 for 50 grams and then another one says $20 for 100 grams, you must know these kind of things and so forth, right? So some basic requirements for the labeling of goods. It will take care of, it doesn't matter whether it will be a food or a product. When I say product, I'm kind of classifying non-food items, right? So just the basic requirements for that. When it comes to specification for packaged water, that's a little bit more, as I said, specific, right? You have to, it would have in things like, what are the microbial requirements? What are the chemical requirements? What are pH requirements? There's a thing going around now where alkaline water is a thing, right? However, yes, however, the standard for drinking water, especially when it comes to pH, is 6.5 to 8.5. Now, anything above 7 is usually considered alkaline, but some people want to carry their water to above 8.5 and even 9 and so forth. You're going into the range of caustic, right? Like bleach and those kind of things and so forth. So you just kind of have to be careful when it comes to certain things like that, and we just want to make sure that people don't go overboard when it comes to these kind of things, right?
Oh, wow.
And then when it comes to when it comes to labeling for food, I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory in that it's like the goods, but it's more specific again for food. There are certain things it must tell you how to use. I mean, I was here before when I said our agro-processors, we make things like guava jelly and so on. And there was an incident where someone from the European nation came and they bought guava jelly, but then they had a complaint because they were putting it on their skin. For us, guava jelly is self-explanatory, so we didn't know the need for that. But after you see from the interaction with the international community and the global community, you kind of see, although they look mundane or just basic, you kind of see sometimes the importance because they don't have the same culture, and we're in a global market now. So you just have to make sure that these things are in place.
And you speak about labeling. Are they, or should they be of a particular size?
Well, it would have a minimum size. At the moment, I can't really remember it, but it's within the standard.
Okay.
All it just means when we put the minimum size and so forth, it just means that people must be able to see it, right? But of course, we understand that certain packages are just too small for certain writing and so on, right? So that we also understand that we do have a culture of loose food, because like we do rice and flour and sugar and salt and them kind of things there. So we have made allocations for those kind of things. It may not be as strenuous or restrictive as with a fully prepackaged food and so on, but yeah, it have to be labeled.
All right, as I look at the labeling requirements for prepackaged foods, a couple of things stand out to me, so I do want to get your take on this. The lot identification or batch number.
It's mostly for the regulators, but it can also save the manufacturer or seller a lot of money. And what I mean by that, anybody here, whether it's an agro-processor, even, right? And I'm going to speak to agro-processors because I want to use it in the context of St. Kitts. And these people are the ones that typically manufacture food items here in St. Kitts and Nevis. You can make a batch this morning of, let's say, guava jam. Make a batch, you're tired, take a sleep, and then in the afternoon, you go and you make another batch. The batch this morning was different from the batch this afternoon. You may have skipped out something in the morning or skipped out something in the afternoon. But let's just say something happened in one of the batches. You don't know, according to you, everything went fine.
Yes.
But then you put it on the shelf and then you saw, okay, in one of them it begins to mold, right? Do I just go and pull all of them off of the shelf, or do I look at the batch number or the lot number to determine which batch is affected? Remove that, save you money, save the supermarket money, and then you can essentially go ahead and replace it, thereby lowering your cost of production, manufacturing, or your losses. So that's why that particular batch or lot number is quite important.
And this is new for, well...
No, it's not new. To give you an example from the international scene, there was one with ice cream. Can't remember the brand at the moment. There's a brand called Blue Bunny.
Yes,
like
there is.
Yes. and there was an E. coli, contamination within that. And so they were being proactive, and they sent out all of the batch numbers and so forth that were affected. And so supermarkets here were able to determine whether their batch was affected, whether they should pull it off of the shelf or they can leave it on. And so with the help of consumer affairs, even with the supermarkets, they were on it and everything like that. And everybody collaborated. It turns out that none of the batches here in St. Kitts and Nevis were affected, fortunately, but at least that information was there. You could have determined whether condemn, nobody gets sick, or you just be like, well, I wonder if our batches.
Fair enough. Point of clarification here. When I asked you if it was new, I meant if it would be a new requirement for, say, the agro-processors to include the batch numbers.
Have to be. It's a requirement no matter where you are in the world. It's an international requirement. It must be there. The name of the food must be there. The amount in it must be there. The how to use it, store it, right? Where it's made. The only thing that we may not put on there as a requirement may be the nutritional requirement. And I relax. It's not that we don't want to put it. But look at this, and sometimes you have to struggle with this. Just because you do not have the capability to do it, do you not enforce it? Some may say yeah, some may say no. Because even if you put it there and you don't have the requirement, you don't have the capabilities to say, well, I'm going to test it to make sure that this is what it is. Can you truly regulate it? Or just because you cannot regulate, does that mean you're not supposed to have it? It's a kind of a conundrum kind of thing, but that's why we're looking for comments to see if that is worthwhile to put in. We do know, though, that the international food it's codexed. They do not have it currently as a requirement. However, although they do not have it as a requirement within a standard, countries choose to legislate this. And so you go to most countries, they will essentially have it as a requirement. So you cannot export. You may be able to just sell here in St. Kitts and Nevis because you have that, but to export it, that will be a no-go. So it's something to think about. It's something that we're looking for. It's something that we're looking for comments on. And I put it in there, right? It's in there, but it's whether or not anybody in St. Kitts and Nevis will flag it. If they do flag it, then we can give our justification and whatnot. And if they don't, it goes through, right?
Jermaine, other than social media sending out something to say we have a bad batch, because this batch is on my mind. What if, let's say, it was an oversight of any of the supermarkets and there were a few left out? They thought they cleared it all off the shelf, but a few were left out. How can we, the consumer, know what batches are bad? How are we informed?
Well, typically, once something happens with a bad batch, we are obligated to put it over the radio. Make sure that people know about it. We would put it on our website. There's not much that you can do except try to get it out there as much as possible. Undoubtedly, if you do miss it, some people are not going to hear about it because not everybody may listen to the radio, not everybody may listen to the news. And word of mouth, some people may hear it and some people may not hear it. So it's the only option that we have at the moment. However, the different agencies like Bureau of Standards, Health Department, Consumer Affairs, they also go ahead and they do checks, but they're human, right?
Yeah, that's what I said, we might miss.
We might miss, but I guess if it does miss, we'll have to win that. We'll have to see. But so far, nothing like that has happened.
Okay,
nothing like that has ever happened. And supermarkets and other business establishments, they tend to be very cooperative when these things happen because their reputation is also there, even though they're not the ones that are manufacturing the product.
Exactly.
All right. I was about to say I didn't think that we had such problems with recall in these parts. I don't know if that's a common thing.
It's not from our local products per se, but and the international, there are times when there may be something that may happen. Since I've been working at the Bureau of Standards, I've seen maybe about 3 recalls from the international scene. One was on the ice cream.
Yeah.
One was on lettuce. There was a
I remember the lettuce.
Yeah, there was an E. coli again. Yes. And then there was one on cantaloupe, which was E. coli again. Wow. Yeah.
You've got your work cut out for you. All right. How can the public find out about the draft regulations?
Well, by listening to the show. You know what I mean? But I mean,
if you want to peruse it, for instance, where is it?
If you want to peruse it, we do have it on our website. Okay. That's why you can come to the Bureau of Standards and request it in a hard copy, right? But it's on our website, there for everybody to see it.
And what's that website?
sknbs.org.
Okay.
It's right there. Everybody, we put it there because once we put out, well, we have already put out notification to the general public in a public, what do they call it, public service
announcement,
something like that, right? And we have to make the WTO notification, so they must be able to see where it is, and the best place to put it is on the website.
Good stuff.
In a worst case scenario, and I'm thinking that this will never happen, but given our reliance on imported goods, if the standards are not adhered to, would there be a problem with the supply? Could there potentially be a problem with the supply of goods to us?
Of course. And to give you an example, this was on the international side. Toys, right? Because India has a big toy importation. Certain country, right next to us, right, makes a lot of toys, and they were sending toys there, knowing that they had in lead, and they argue that this is a big industry for them, and they don't see anything wrong essentially with sending toys with this material to this other country, even though lead is known, whether it's already removed from paints and everything like that. But because I think they didn't have a standard in place at the time, and so that had happened. You wouldn't believe how much people call us when it comes to standards. People, when it comes to buildings and so forth, people ask us what are the standards for building codes, right? They ask us for that. They ask us for electrical codes, especially when it's a foreign company that is coming into St. Nevis. They ask us for road, they ask us for lumber, they ask us for steel, they ask us for baby food, right? They ask us a lot. So fortunately, because I have had experience, I have already adopted these standards now for the different agencies and so forth to use them. We can't regulate everything, like we can't regulate lumber, we don't know. And somebody may say, well, why you need to regulate lumber? Every house having lumber. There are certain treatments for lumber, chemical treatments for lumber that can give you cancer. You touch it, you have a child in your house, they bite it, they gnaw on it and so forth, and they absorb these chemicals. Next thing, things happening and you're wondering, well, what is happening, right? So these things must be known. We're trying our best in the background to try and make the public safe. We won't catch everything. People may say, well, why you don't have the standard? It may just be that we didn't know.
Okay.
Let us know. Send us an email. You can tell us, and we will look for this. If there is a standard on it, we will look for it, and we will try to adopt it.